Would you undress in public to honor the gods? Close your eyes and transport yourself to a sun-scorched hill in ancient Sparta. 600 BC, the air shimmers with heat, thick with the scent of dust and olive groves. Your skin is bare, warmed by the relentless Greek sun, sweat tracing delicate paths down your chest. Thousands of eyes are fixed on you, yet there's no trace of shame, only a surge of pride, raw and unshakable. This is the Gymnopedia, a sacred festival where young men dance naked, their bodies weaving through the air in perfect unison, each leap and turn a living hymn to Apollo. This isn't rebellion or scandal. It's a celebration of the human form as the ultimate truth, a testament to strength, virtue, and a connection to the divine that pulses through every muscle and breath. In ancient Greece, nudity wasn't a taboo to be whispered about, it was a philosophy etched into the very soul of the culture. The Spartans, fierce and unyielding, saw the body as a mirror of the soul's discipline. To bear it was to reveal honesty, stripped of deceit or pretense. At the Gymnopedia, boys as young as 12 and men in their prime shed their coarse woolen tunics to perform intricate dances, their muscles gleaming with olive oil under the blazing sunlight. Spectators didn't leer with judgment. They gazed with reverence, as if witnessing a sacred rite. These movements weren't mere performance, but a ritual of unity, a bold declaration that Sparta's strength lay not in its walls, but in the honed bodies and unyielding spirits of its people. To falter in a step was to dishonor not just oneself, but the city and its gods, a failure that could ripple through the cosmos. Picture the Olympic Games, 776 BC, where athletes sprinted across back earth, wrestled in clouds of dust, and hurled javelins with the grace of gods all in the nude. Why? Because the Greeks believed the body was a divine gift sculpted by the hands of the Olympians themselves. To cover it during competition was to hide that gift, an act of ingratitude bordering on sacrilege. The word gymnasium derives from gymnos, meaning naked, and these contests were as much about spiritual perfection as physical prowess. A victor's statue, carved in gleaming marble like the Discobolus with its poised grace, wasn't a monument to individual ego, but a tribute to the ideal form shared by all humanity. Sculptures of Zeus or Athena, nude and serene, stood as testaments to this belief. Nudity was nobility, a state of being closer to the divine than any mortal could hope to achieve while cloaked in cloth. This wasn't reckless exhibitionism or a free-for-all flaunting of flesh. The Greeks drew a sharp, almost sacred line between this purposeful nudity and vulgarity. Philosophers like Plato argue that a disciplined body reflected a harmonious soul, a balance of intellect and strength that elevated humanity above beasts. In art, gods and heroes were depicted nude to signify their perfection, not to titillate. A statue of Apollo, his form unadorned, wasn't an invitation to lust but a challenge to aspire to his grace. To hide the body was to hide one's essence, a cowardice unthinkable in a culture that prized courage above all else. Yet, this idealism wasn't without its boundaries. In Athens, nudity was more tightly regulated outside festivals. Confined to gymnasiums or private rites, public displays were choreographed, deliberate, and steeped in meaning, never casual or careless. What of women in this world of bared bodies? In Sparta, they occupied a unique space. Girls trained nearly as rigorously as boys, running, wrestling, and throwing javelins in light tunics or, during certain rituals, topless under the sun. Their strength was celebrated not as objects of desire, but as vessels of life, capable of birthing warriors to sustain the city's might. This wasn't about seduction but survival, a pragmatic reverence for the female form as the cradle of Sparta's future. The poet Sappho, from nearby Lesbos, wove verses that praised women's beauty with the same intensity given to male athletes, her words delicate yet bold, hinting at a world where the female form was divine. From the sunlit hills of Sparta, we sail across the Ionian Sea to Rome 200 BCE, where the body transcends nobility to become divine. Picture the Lupercalia, a February festival pulsing with primal energy. The air hums with anticipation as half-naked men, draped in rough coat hides, race through Rome's cobbled streets, their laughter echoing off ancient stone. These are the Luperci, priests channeling Faunus, the wild god of fertility, their bodies glistening with sweat and ritual oil. Women line the paths, baring their arms, even their shoulders, hoping for a playful lash from the priests, whips believe to ensure fertility and ease childbirth. This isn't chaos or debauchery, it's communion, a fleeting moment where human skin brushes against the divine, where the mortal and the sacred blur into one. Rome's rituals were raw, visceral, yet steeped in reverence. The Bacchanalia, honoring Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy, unfolded in moonlit groves far from the city's prying eyes. Men and women danced under flickering torchlight, often scantily clad or entirely nude, their bodies swaying to the haunting wail of flutes and the rhythmic beat of drums. These weren't the orgies later critics sneered at, but rites of transcendence, where shedding clothing meant shedding mortality itself. The body became a bridge to Olympus, a vessel for the god's will. Imagine the scene, the air thick with the scent of wine and pine, shadows dancing on bare skin, every movement a prayer, every breath a step closer to eternity. To participate was to surrender to something larger, to let the divine pulse through your veins. But Rome was not Greece. Public nudity was rare, confined to the steamy intimacy of bathhouses or the sanctity of rituals. Citizens draped themselves in togas, heavy woolen garments that signaled status and modesty, their folds a carefully curated mask of decorum. Yet, in sacred moments, these rules dissolved like mist. During Saturnalia, the December festival of reversal, slaves and masters swapped roles, and clothing became optional in some raucous celebrations. A senator might dance beside a freedman, their skin glowing under torchlight, equal for one fleeting night before Saturn's altar. This wasn't mere revelry, it was a reminder of humanity's shared essence, a pause in Rome's rigid hierarchy, where the body bare and unadorned leveled all distinctions. Yet, Rome's nudity was tightly controlled, a sacred act policed by priests and tradition. The line between reverence and lust was fragile, and crossing it could mean exile or death. The Bacchanalia itself was banned in 186 BCE, when whispers of debauchery reached the Senate, a stark reminder of Rome's fear of unchecked passion. The Lupercalia's whips, made from goat skin, weren't cruel, but symbolic, tying pain to fertility, sacrifice to renewal. These rituals reveal a paradox. a society that craved order yet hungered for moments of wild, sacred release, where the body could speak what words could not. For women, ritual nudity was a complex dance. In Lupercalia, they participated as supplicants bearing arms or shoulders in hope of divine blessings, their vulnerability a sacred offering. In private rites, like those for Bonadie, goddess of fertility, women danced unveiled, their skin a secret gift to the divine feminine. These moments were empowering, a rare space where women's bodies were sacred, not subservient. Their nudity a claim to agency in a world that often denied it. Yet, outside these rituals, modesty was a matron's armor. The stola, a long, draped gown, was a badge of chastity, its heavy folds a shield against the world's gaze. To step outside this code was to risk disgrace, a tension that made every ritual bearing a quiet act of courage. But Rome's sacred nudity wasn't without shadows. The poor and enslaved were often excluded from these rites, their bodies deemed unfit for divine communion. Even among elites, only the young, the beautiful, the powerful were celebrated, their nudity a privilege not all could claim. This raises a question. Was this liberation universal or merely a spectacle for the elite? The tension between transcendence and exclusion weaves through Rome's rituals, a thread that tugs at our understanding of freedom and power. As we wander these torchlit streets, the echoes of laughter and drums fading into the night, consider, what does it mean to bear yourself for a higher purpose? In a world of curated facades, could vulnerability be a path to truth? Rome's rituals invite us to see the body as a vessel, not a vice, a canvas for the divine. As we drift eastward, prepare for a new kind of nudity, one draped not in torchlight, but in veils of seduction. Where fabric becomes a language of its own, we leave Rome's wild, torchlit rites and drift eastward to the sun-baked sands of ancient Egypt. 1500 BC, here the body isn't merely bared, it's adorned with whispers of fabric, so fine they seem woven from mist. Picture a noble woman standing by the Nile's shimmering edge, her linen dress clinging to her skin, sheer as a dragonfly's wing, catching the golden light of Ra. This is no accident of fashion. In Egypt, transparent fabrics were a status symbol, spun with such delicacy that they revealed as much as they concealed, a delicate dance of modesty and allure that spoke of power, divinity, and desire. Linen, crafted from the flax that grew along the Nile, was Egypt's gold. Priests and pharaohs wore it to honor the gods, its translucence a sign of purity and wealth. In temple frescoes, goddesses like Isis shimmer in sheer gowns, their forms both divine and earthly, their silhouettes softened by the play of light and shadow. These garments weren't just clothing, they were a language, a way to communicate closeness to the divine. A high priestess's dress, catching the sun's rays, declared her intimacy with Ra, the sun god, her transparency a symbol of spiritual clarity. Commoners wore coarser cloth, their garments heavy and opaque, but even they aspired to the ethereal sheerness of the elite. In death, pharaohs and nobles were wrapped in layers of fine linen, as if to carry their radiance into the afterlife, their bodies preserved in a cocoon of light. Now, journey to ancient India, 300 BC, where the sari emerges like a river of silk, woven from cotton or gossamer thin silk. These long, flowing drapes were often so fine they seemed to float. A second skin that shimmered steeped in the tropical heat in the caves of Ajanta. Frescoes capture women in translucent saris, their curves softened by fabric that teases the eye, each fold a brush stroke in a living painting. The sari wasn't just clothing, it was mythology woven into thread. In Hindu texts, goddesses like Saraswati wore veils that glimmered like sacred rivers, their transparency a metaphor for divine revelation. To wear a sari was to embody grace, to balance modesty with allure, to walk the line between mortal and divine with every step. In both cultures, transparent fabrics were more than fashion, they were ritual, a bridge between the earthly and the eternal. In Egypt, priestesses danced in sheer linen during festivals for Hathor, goddess of love and beauty, their movements echoing the Nile's gentle flow, their bodies a living offering to the divine. In India, temple dancers, known as devadesis, wore diaphanous saris, their forms a canvas for divine stories, each gesture narrating myths of gods and heroes. These garments, light as air, were a paradox. They covered yet revealed, protected yet invited. They spoke of a world where beauty was sacred, not sinful, where the body was a vessel for the divine rather than a source of shame. Yet, this world of veils wasn't without tension. In Egypt, only the elite could afford such fine fabrics, making transparency a marker of class, a privilege woven into every thread. In India, texts like the Kama Sutra hint at the sari's seductive power, its folds carefully arranged to entice, yet moral codes urged restraint, warning against excess. The line between reverence and desire was thin, and women navigated it with care. A misplaced fold could spark gossip. A perfect drape could inspire awe, even worship. These fabrics were a tightrope walked with grace and daring, a testament to the skill of those who wore them. But this wasn't an egalitarian world. Slaves and laborers in Egypt wore coarse linen, their bodies hidden from the divine spotlight. In India, only the wealthy or sacred could afford the finest silks, their transparency a luxury beyond the reach of the common. Even among the elite, only the young and beautiful were celebrated, their bodies framed as divine, while others faded into the background. This raises a question. Whose beauty was deemed sacred? Was transparency a universal gift, or a privilege reserved for the few? The interplay of power, class, and allure weaves through these ancient fabrics, a thread that pulls us forward through time. As we linger in this world of veils and sunlight, the Nile's ripples and India's breezes whispering around us, consider, what does it mean to reveal yourself through what you wear? In a modern age of fast fashion and fleeting trends, could we find meaning in fabrics that speak, that tell stories of gods and mortals as we leap forward to a glittering palace? Prepare for a revolution, one where sheer dresses shock an empire and change the course of history. Fast forward to Versailles, 1780s, where the air hums with the rustle of silk and the sharp edge of scandal. Picture Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, stepping into a garden party at the Petit Trianon, her chemise La Reine, white muslin gown flowing like a cloud around her. No corset, no heavy brocade, just a whisper of fabric that clings to her form, so sheer it seems spun from morning mist. Gasps ripple through the court, whispers rising like a storm. This isn't just a dress, it's a rebellion, a bold declaration that beauty needs no armor, that the body can speak louder than gold or velvet. The chemise à la reine was nothing short of revolutionary. Inspired by the flowing drapery of ancient Greek statues, it rejected the rigid corsets and wide panniers that had long imprisoned French noblewomen. For centuries, court fashion had been a cage whalebone and silk squeezing bodies into unnatural shapes. A symbol of control and hierarchy, the chemise, with its soft muslin and simple lines, was a radical departure. Worn without undergarments, it was scandalously transparent under candlelight, its cozy fabric catching every flicker of light to reveal the natural silhouette beneath. Paintings by Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun capture this moment. Noble women in flowing white, their skin glowing through muslin, as if they were nymphs reborn in a gilded palace. But freedom came at a steep cost. Critics called the dress indecent, comparing Marie Antoinette to a courtesan or worse. Satirical pamphlets flooded Paris, mocking the queen as naked, her sheer gown a symbol of moral decay. These attacks weren't just about fashion. They fueled revolutionary fervor, painting the monarchy as decadent and out of touch. Yet Marie Antoinette persisted, her chemise a defiant act against the suffocating traditions of Versailles. Other women followed, donning muslin at garden parties and intimate salons, their bodies liberated from the cage of court fashion. This was more than a style, it was a cultural earthquake, a step toward modernity that echoed the Enlightenment's call for natural beauty and individual freedom. The chemise wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a challenge to gender norms. In a world where corsets symbolized control over women's bodies, shedding them was radical. The gown gave women a taste of bodily autonomy, a chance to move, breathe, and exist without constraint. Yet the backlash was fierce. Clergy thundered from pulpits, decrying the trend as immoral. Conservatives warned of societal collapse, while satirists penned cartoons of fallen noblewomen. Their sheer gowns proof of sin, the chemise became a lightning rod for debates about femininity, class, and power, with Marie Antoinette as its controversial muse, both celebrated and vilified. Art amplified this revolution. Painters like Fragonard and Boucher depicted women in sheer gowns, their forms softened by light, evoking both innocence and a subtle, daring allure. These images weren't just portraits, they were manifestos, celebrating the body as natural, not sinful, a return to the ideals of ancient Greece. Yet, the court's obsession with transparency wasn't universal. Servants and commoners couldn't afford muslin's delicate weave, a reminder that this freedom was a privilege of the elite. Even among noblewomen, only the young and slender were praised, their bodies framed as ideals, while others were ignored. This raises a question. Can fashion liberate if it's only for the few? The chemise was both a triumph and a tragedy, a fleeting moment of freedom in a world on the brink of revolution. The scandal of the chemise had lasting echoes. It challenged the monarchy's image, feeding the flames of the French Revolution. Yet, it also paved the way for modern fashion, where simplicity and the natural body became ideals. As we stroll through Versailles gilded halls, the rustle of muslin in our ears, consider, what does it mean to wear your rebellion? In a world of rigid expectations, could a single garment change history? As we move to the Victorian era, brace for a backlash one, where desire hid behind a veil of hypocrisy. We step into the Victorian era, 1850s, where modesty reigns supreme, or so it seems. Picture a London ballroom, gaslights casting golden shadows on women in corsets and crinolines, their bodies sculpted into impossible hourglass shapes. The air is heavy with perfume and propriety, yet beneath this polished surface, a rebellion brews. Some women wear silk gowns so fine they glow under candlelight, their skin faintly visible through translucent fabric. This isn't innocence, it's defiance, a whisper of desire in a world obsessed with restraint, a secret challenge to an era that preached chastity while hiding its own contradictions. Victorian society was a paradox, cloaked in moral rigor, but simmering with unspoken longing. Corsets cinch waists to the point of fainting, their whalebone ribs a symbol of control over female bodies, enforcing an ideal of delicate femininity, skirts ballooned with crinolines, creating a barrier between the wearer and the world. Yet, in private salons and glittering ballrooms, sheer fabrics emerged as a quiet revolt. Gowns of tulle, muslin, or fine silk worn with daringly low necklines or transparent sleeves hinted at what lay beneath. These weren't the sacred nudes of Greece or the divine rituals of Rome, but a calculated tease, a way to be seen while claiming the veneer of modesty. Letters and diaries from the era reveal a hidden truth. Women crave to be looked at, to feel their power in a glance. A debutante's journal might confess the thrill of a sheer sleeve catching a suitor's eye, the fabric shimmering as she moved through a waltz. Men, too, played this game, their tailored suits framing their bodies in ways that rival the corset's artifice. At dances, candlelight turned sheer fabrics into spectacles, each twirl a flirtation with scandal, a momentary rebellion against the era's suffocating rules. Yet the hypocrisy of the time loomed large. A woman could be ruined by a too revealing gown, her virtue questioned in hushed whispers, her social standing shattered by a single daring choice. This tension between repression and rebellion defined the Victorian era. Fashion magazines praised delicate fabrics, their pages filled with engravings of ethereal gowns, while moralists warned of the dangers of immodesty, equating transparency with sign. In private, women wrote of longing to escape their corsets, to feel their skin breathe, to reclaim their bodies from the tyranny of whalebone and lace. Sheer gowns were their secret weapon, a way to assert agency in a world that demanded submission. Even Queen Victoria, the era's moral icon, owned muslin dresses that shimmered under light, a quiet nod to the allure she publicly disdained. Art and literature fueled this rebellion. Pre-Raphaelite painters like Dante Gabriel Rossetti depicted women in flowing, translucent gowns, their bodies both ethereal and earthly, their beauty a challenge to Victorian prudery. Novels like Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights hinted at the power of a woman's form, even when veiled by layers of propriety. These works weren't just art, they were mirrors, reflecting a society wrestling with its own desires, caught between duty and the pull of something wilder. The sheer gown, blowing under candlelight, was a symbol of this struggle, a way to navigate the narrow path between decorum and defiance. But this rebellion was not without limits. Only the wealthy could afford the finest silks and tulles. Their transparency, luxury beyond the reach of the working class, who toiled in coarse wool or cotton. Even among the elite, the pressure to conform was crushing. making every sheer gown a risk, a potential fall from grace. The era's obsession with chastity created a double standard. Men could admire, but women who invited that admiration were judged. This raises a question: can rebellion exist when it's so tightly bound by consequence? The Victorian sheer gown was a paradox, a fleeting glimpse of freedom in a world of constraint. As we linger in the scandal-lit ballroom, the rustle of silk and the clink of glasses fading into the night ask, what does it mean to hide your desires while revealing them in a culture that demands control? Could a glimpse of skin be a quiet revolution? As we move to the present, prepare for a question that echoes through time, one that asks whether bearing the body is liberation or spectacle. We leap forward to 2025, where sheer fabrics dominate the runways and red carpets of a world obsessed with visibility. Picture a celebrity at the Met Gala, draped in a nude illusion gown, crystals woven into delicate mesh that mimics bare skin, sparkling under 1,000 camera flashes. From Paris haute couture to Instagram feeds, transparency is everywhere, a glittering currency of attention. But what does it mean? Is this the liberation claim by Versailles muslin-clad rebels, or a spectacle engineered for clicks and headlines? Let's trace this thread from the sacred rites of antiquity to the curated chaos of today, asking a question that lingers like a whisper. Has fashion ever truly changed? Modern sheer fashion is a love letter to the past, its roots tangled in the sunlit linen of Egypt, the flowing saris of India, and the scandalous chemise of Versailles. Designers like Dior, Givenchy, and Schiaparelli craft gowns that echo ancient drapery, their fabrics clinging like a second skin or floating like mist. At events like the Oscars or Coachella, stars wear dresses that shimmer like sari silk or glow like Marie Antoinette's muslin, their bodies both revealed and sealed in a delicate dance of light and shadow. Yet the context has shifted. Where ancient nudity was a sacred act, today's is often commercial, a carefully staged performance. A red carpet gown isn't a ritual offering to the gods, but a headline grabber, designed to go viral before the night is over. Compare this to the worlds we've explored. In Sparta, nudity honored Apollo, a testament to truth and strength in Rome. It bridged the mortal and divine, a fleeting surrender to ecstasy. In Egypt and India, sheer fabrics were mythic, weaving the wearer into the stories of gods. In Versailles, the chemise la reine was a political act, a rejection of tradition that sparked both freedom and fury. Today, transparency can be empowering. Think of celebrities like Rihanna or Beyoncé, using sheer designs to reclaim their bodies, to assert control over their image in a world that seeks to define them. But it's also a market. Brands profit from shock, and social media amplifies it, turning every sheer gown into a commodity. Every exposed inch a bid for likes and followers. A transparent dress at the Grammys isn't a prayer, it's a press release crafted for maximum impact. Yet there's a thread of continuity that binds these eras. Like the priestesses of Hathor or the devadeses of ancient India, modern icons use transparency to command attention, their bodies a canvas for art, power, or provocation. Festivals like Burning Man or Carnival, with their scant costumes and glittering displays, echo Saturnalia's fleeting equality, where social rules dissolved under the weight of celebration. The body remains a stage, whether for gods, kings or millions of followers, but where ancients sought transcendence, connection to something larger than themselves. Today's nudity often seeks spectacle, a moment of fleeting fame in an endless scroll. The line is blurry. Is a sheer gown liberation, a reclaiming of the self, or commodification, a surrender to the gaze of the crowd? This question isn't new. It's woven into every era we've explored. The Greeks distinguished sacred nudity from vulgarity, policing the line with philosophy and ritual. Romans feared passion's excess, banning rites that strayed too far. Victorians hid desire behind lace, their sheer gowns a secret rebellion against a prudish facade. Today, we wrestle with the same tension. A sheer dress can empower one woman, giving her control over her narrative, while objectifying another, reducing her to a product for consumption. Fashion's power lies in its ambiguity. It reveals what we value, fear, or crave, reflecting the contradictions of the human heart. Modernity adds a new layer to this ancient dance. Technology, cameras, filters, algorithms turns every outfit into a global performance. Scrutinized by millions, ancient nudity was communal, shared in the moment with those present. Today's is broadcast, archived, and dissected, its meaning shaped by likes, retweets, and comments. This raises a final question. Can transparency be authentic in a world of curated images, where every choice is a performance? The answer lies in intent. A Greek athlete bared his body for honor. A Victorian woman wore sheer silk for rebellion. A modern star might wear mesh for art or for attention. The body remains a canvas, but the painter has changed, and the audience is infinite. As we close this journey, from the sunlit hills of Sparta to the flashing lights of the red carpet, consider, what does it mean to bare yourself today? Is it freedom, a reclaiming of your story, or just another post in a sea of images? From sacred skin to sheer scandal, fashion has always asked us to look closer at ourselves, our desires, our truths. It challenges us to question who controls the gaze, who writes the story of our bodies. What does transparency mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation alive on our channel.